It seemed like the death of Muammar Gaddafi is not something that will have to go in vain. The death of Muammar Gaddafi, it had revolted the entire African generations. The youth of Africa continent, they are now standing against the oppressors who've been colonizing them economically and mentally. These African youth, they are now using the death of their true liberators against the oppressors. The death of Muammar Gaddafi, Patrice Emery Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Nkrumah Nkrumah, all these African leaders, they have set a fine example for this new generation, and we are going to talk about it in this video. I want to talk about two individuals. Of course, I want to talk about two Pan-Africans. One is from South Africa, called by the name of Julius Malema, followed by Ibrahim Traore, who's the current president of Burkina Faso in the western of Africa. These African brothers, these African youth leaders, they have demonstrated what they are capable of to the entire generation of African youth. They are playing that big influence which had a very big impact on African youth, and they deserve a round of applause for that. So in the first video, I want you first to pay attention to what Julius Malema had to say about the Western, on how they've been operating in Africa continent, on how they manage to neutralize the economy of Africans, on how they succeed to kill each and every Pan-Africans who have tried to stand against them. I don't want to speak much in behalf of Julius Malema himself, but here's what Julius Malema had to say before we back with more analysis.
Colonialists want to exploit our minerals without being held accountable. It is the colonialists who are corrupting the leadership of Africa and making sure that those who are not corrupt are replaced by the corrupt puppets who will allow colonialism to continue in the African continent. Any battle you can imagine anywhere in the continent, it has got everything else to do with those who colonized us before. Today, they want to choose who are the leaders for African people. As we stand here today, Gaddafi should be an enemy of our people, according to the declaration of the Western imperialism. Because Gaddafi stood for our people. Gaddafi himself, before he was killed by imperialist forces, Gaddafi nationalized the oil industry when he took over Libya. And he made sure that the people of Libya receive free health care and housing. The people of Libya actually used to get a piece of land for getting married. That's why many of you will remain single, because you realize there's going to be a problem here. I'm going to marry someone, and where are we going to stay? As a way of appreciating the young ones who are beginning to establish the family unit, Gaddafi used to thank them with a piece of land. Today, Gaddafi is an enemy because he stood against apartheid and associated with all African countries that were fighting against colonialism. Gaddafi is an enemy today because he stood with the people of Palestine. Immediately when Gaddafi died, we saw Africans being taken by force in Libya as slaves, even post-colonial period. After Gaddafi died, Libya, which we're told it was under dictatorship and the most brutal man, has never known peace. It is under the group of warlords. It is under the group of terrorists, under the militia, and the people who are forcing themselves into power through a barrel of a gun. Today, one of the most unstable countries is DRC. Lumumba, because when Lumumba came in, they realized that this guy is going to create independence in the DRC, where the most strategic minerals are found. Since the passing of Lumumba till to date, DRC has never known peace. They will never know peace because those who are exploiting the resources of that area are the ones who are sponsoring the rebels in that area. They don't want authorities in DRC because authorities will mean that we must also control the airspace of Libya. And when you control the airspace, you know which plane came in to do what and went out at what time. They are sponsoring rebels, doing land strips in the forests where they land and take the minerals undetected and leave DRC. Today, DRC was supposed to be one of the most richest countries, but the imperialist forces will not allow it to be. So Sankara was killed. And when you think Sankara was killed by his friend, that one was just the one who pulled the trigger. But there are brains behind that man who pulled the trigger, who, by the way, was a friend of Sankara. Burkina Faso would have been one of the most beautiful countries in Africa had Sankara lived long. The man who said to his people, here is the land, you must produce for the government and produce for yourself. Sankara who loved education. Sankara who gave our people health care. Sankara who knew that there will never be total liberation of people if women are not liberated themselves. Sankara who knew that a political activist must be equipped with theory of politics, because a soldier with a gun without political theory is a potential criminal. That's why political education is always important. Sankara who said, I'm not going to be part of borrowing money from IMF and the World Bank. So these leaders, I'm singling some of them out because I want to demonstrate to you that those who seeked good for us did not stay long. If you come to South Africa, Chris Sani's crime was not because he killed anyone, was not because he was mobilizing anyone. Chris was just speaking his mind. Not because he went to mobilize the people of Alexandra, not because he went to mobilize the people of Eastern Cape against what the negotiations was talking about. He just said, this is not what we went into the bush for. If we are going to take it through a barrel of a pen and we don't fight, then you must know we'll never realize that which we went to the bush for. And they realized that this man cannot be persuaded, not even by money. And they did not waste time. They finished him off. Today, Mugabe, who was a darling, if you think Mandela was loved, you must revisit your history and check when Mugabe was becoming the president of Zimbabwe after the defeat of Rhodesia. He was the most celebrated man. He was loved by everybody until he started questioning the issue of the land. That the land must be transferred from the colonizer to the people of Zimbabwe. But when he was not advocating for that, especially after the Lancaster Resolution, they thought he's one such a gentleman who will allow them to do as they wish, until he realized that he was going to pass on without transferring the means of production into the hands of our people. Today, every African leader who served for a very long time in Africa, we are told is a fascist, is undemocratic. This person is a dictator. But such words were never said about Queen Elizabeth, who ruled for more than 50 years. And it's not just monarchy, like a Zulu monarchy or Abatembu monarchy. It's a monarchy that has got powers on the political systems of Britain. There is no any prime minister in Britain who can proceed with anything else politically without the go-ahead of the Queen, now the King. No one of those prime ministers can declare a war. Only the Queen or the King can declare a war. But that person has never been democratically elected. That person has got no term of office. They serve until the grave, and they are not called fascists and dictators. They do so with our leaders because they want to impose on us the imperialist bourgeois democracy. That democracy is when you go for 5 years and you are done. But as young people who are engaged in this space, you have a duty to ask yourself, how did we govern ourselves in the earlier primitive society before the arrival of the colonialist? And we're not asking here of an ancient history. Very recent, you'll realize that we were able to govern ourselves without being dictated to by the white people in terms of how we must govern ourselves. Today, we must be told that a good governance is a governance that complies with IMF or World Bank. Anything else outside that, even if your people are benefiting, you are not a good leader. Actually, you are a dictator. When we were negotiating for our democracy and thinking it's a peaceful transition from resistance to democracy, we actually found our leaders negotiating deals instead of negotiating for democracy. You need to go and do a research and ask yourself, when did the Vodafone deal come into South Africa? Vodafone. There were no cell phones. Vodafone was not here. Vodafone was negotiating with the apartheid regime just before the negotiations for democracy started. When the negotiators realized that, amongst other things, these people are talking about a wireless phone which is coming to South Africa, they stopped the negotiations and went to Vodafone, or you are talking to wrong people. We are going to take over after these people. Come this side, and even if you insist on that deal with those people, when we come in, we are going to cancel that deal. Go and check out who were the black people who were part of a deal of Vodafone, what you call Vodacom today. And you must ask, once you know their names, then go and check what was their role in the negotiations. Then you will have an answer why we are where we are. They didn't have to kill them. They just have to corrupt them and give them the necessary resource to undermine the African struggle.
Listening very well to Julius Malema, you will understand that it did not only expose the plan of the Western, but it also exposed their strategy on how they've been succeeding to eliminate African leaders. Julius Malema is not making up all this story. Julius Malema just spoke about things which already happened, things that took place in this African continent. For an example, you had Julius Malema mentioning Muammar Gaddafi. Guys, do you all still remember how Gaddafi was assassinated? Do you guys still remember the message which the West they were preaching in behalf of Gaddafi? They decorated Gaddafi as a criminal. They considered Gaddafi as a dictator. When people of Libya, they were living in peace. When people of Libya, they were having food to eat. When people of Libya, they were having water, even though they are located in Sahara regions. Yet Gaddafi managed to go all the way to the Ocean Pacific and collect water from there and deliver to each and every house. When people of Libya had electricity, free electricity. Should I go on? Because the list is too long. We all know that Gaddafi, he used to give should I say, bonus to each and every student. If you are in the university, you are having a free bonus that can allow you to go and study anywhere around the world. And if you decide to study at home, you will be having a car which per day will be giving you about 10 liters of petrol. That kind of life that Gaddafi had for his people. We are talking about the same African leader who had said that Africans, they are welcome in my country because Having Africans in my country, I'm seeing myself like I'm having people in my paradise, because you used to consider Libya as a paradise on earth. We all know that. These are the things that happen. If you have to go back today in Libya and ask them what happened to this kind of life, I believe they won't be able to give you the proper answer. Do you know why? Because Libyans, they had let themselves being fooled by the Western. America and France, they went to Libya and seduced people of Libya, as we are seeing it, we are seeing them doing right now in Ukraine and Israel. They are busy encouraging them to do things which are not good, because tomorrow they will turn their backs on them. Remember, when they went to people of Libya, they had to put Gaddafi out there as a bad person who does not deserve to be called as a leader. They had to start influencing people of Libya, using their media, saying that they should get rid of Gaddafi, because Muammar Gaddafi is not a leader who can continue to be there. His time is up. And people of Libya, stupid as they were, they rushed and they eliminated Muammar Gaddafi. Of course, when we say that they eliminated Muammar Gaddafi, we are not saying that them intentionally. No. They were only the people who pulled the trigger. And the mastermind behind the assassination of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, we all know that it is France, we all know that it is British, it is America, and all these NATO countries. Well, you saw how people of Libya celebrated.
But on the day the NTC announced the country was liberated, Libyans say they're looking to the future, a future without the Gaddafis. And the queues outside the coal storage room in Misrata still show no signs of thinning out.
They thought they were going out to have that freedom of speech. They thought they were going to have that better life than the one Muammar Gaddafi used to provide for them. They thought that the Western will do some magic in that land. But go and look Libya today. Libya is no longer the same. Libya does not even show that this is the same country which Muammar Gaddafi had led for about 44 years ago. Guys, all this, it was because the Western, they had to go and stand against him, because Muammar Gaddafi has a vision for Africa. Muammar Gaddafi has a vision for Libyan people, and he was trying to come up with all these ideas to fight against the Western, because he was one of the African leaders who challenged the West and said that no, enough, it is enough. We can't continue paying you guys for your satellite when you are busy collecting the data from us, knowing our way of communications, knowing all our plans. So we need to have our own satellite as Africans. We need to have our own currency. We need to have our own army so that we can be able to solve all the conflict that we're facing in Africa continent. But the West, since they knew very well that this kind of idea, if it has to go through Africans, we're not going to be able to survive. That's how they end up stopping him by killing him. You guys, you heard again Julius Malema giving example of Robert Mugabe. Mugabe, who used to be their friend, until when he decided to take the land away from these people. Since then, they start considering Mugabe as their enemy number one, because Mugabe took something which was very precious for them. After Mugabe took the land away from these people, you also how they had to go and impose all kind of sanctions against Zimbabwe, including the man called Robert Mugabe. Until today, Zimbabwe is still under sanctions. Why? Because Zimbabwe government, after the one of Robert Mugabe, they still don't want to give the land back, because they believe the land is in the rightful owners. So these people, they are refusing even to remove sanctions on Zimbabwe, because the current government of Mnangagwa still not want to work with them or to give back the land in the hands of these people. The day Mnangagwa will change his language to start obeying them or doing things differently, you will see how they are going to remove these sanctions as soon as possible. The point that we need to take in all this is that the Western, they can stand on anyone who's trying to fight them. They can fight anyone who's trying to challenge their authority in Africa continent. Let's say you are sitting at your place and here comes someone in your house to beat you up and take everything from your house, walk away without being chased or without being challenged by you. Of course, if people have to come back, they'll think that maybe this person was strong enough than you, or maybe you were not in the good conditions in order for you to fight them, to stop them from running away with everything that belongs to you. Now, let's say again that if this same person come to you for the second time and beat you up, steal again everything from your house, taking it by force to the point that he even start beating your family members, could be your wife or your children, and this person walk away from you. If you have to tell the people the same story, of course, people, before they start judging you, they might understand that maybe you are not physically fit to beat this person or to stop this person from them not leaving your place with everything that belongs to you. But if this person have to come back for the third time and do the same act to the point that maybe they would like to rape some of your children or your women, and if you're still not doing something, of course, no one will take your side anymore. They'll think that you are a coward, you are a lazy man, you could not be able to fight back and protect your family or protect whatsoever belongs to you. Why? Because they can see that this is the same men who've been coming to you and they are doing all these bad things, but yet you are not able to defend yourself. With this illustration in your mind, this will take us to what the Western they have done in Africa continent. The Western, they are used to come in Africa continent to assassinate, to rape, to violate the human right, to pretend to preach people about democracy, but at the contrary, they don't do these things as we all know it. These Westerns with their medias, they like to walk in Africans' affairs and try to impose their leadership to African leaders because they believe that they are that big brother that Africans should be fear of. If anyone try to resist against them, if anyone as Pan-Africans try to challenge them, they'll do everything by all means to see on how they can destroy the reputation of this person, to see on how they can paint this person with the brush or color of their choice. We saw them doing this kind of things to different leaders around the world. We are having people such as Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, so on. There are so many leaders around the world with the different countries which we have seen the Western, they have to go in there and do bad propagandas through their medias in order for them to destroy these Africans or these world leaders who are going against them. And they thought this will last forever. They never had an idea that someday in the future, they'll find some strong African youth who will have to stand on their way and put that barrier by saying that enough, it is enough. It is about time Africans get to do things differently. Well, in this video, guys, I want you to see for yourself the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, on how he get to address the Western with their medias. He tried to expose the Western medias, how they've been operating all these times. And that is how they succeed to bully many people around the world, many leaders in the African continent. That is how they succeed to clean their names and make other nations look like bad countries. Ibrahim Traore exposed the Western medias, how they've been operating, and he had to call each and every African to not pay attention to what these medias have to say, to not even follow them, because he called for Africans to unsubscribe themselves from this Western media.
Western media, nothing new. And that's great, you are journalists. You work in news. Do you see what is called media manipulation? I think many understand now. Most of them are lying media. They've spent their time lying, manipulating. And today when I look at them, the reports and everything it says is shameful. And it's very good they even managed to prove to all of Africa, to the entire world, that they are liars.
There are many examples throughout Africa of brave men who refused to be cowardly, who fought, who faced. Well, let us be worthy of these people. We are their descendants, and let us be worthy of them.
Ne soyons pas lâches.
A coward cannot be
jeunesse
worthy.
africaine. Parce qu'un lâche,
Let us not be cowards, young Africans, because a coward is always a traitor.
ils nous feront, ils
And it
essaieront
goes
de-
hand in
ils
hand.
essaieront de nous faire
They
peur.
will try to frighten us so that we become cowards.
Et si nous sommes lâches, nous allons trahir.
And if we are cowards, we will betray. We must ban the treachery of our habits.
Des Africains ont été traîtres pour que la traite négrière.
Africans have been traitors so that the slave trade succeeds in Africa. It is because Africans have been traitors that colonization has been able to sustain in Africa. Let us question history.
Lumumba.
We will see. Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, was betrayed because he dared to hold his head.
Belges sont venus au Congo pour quelques billets tendus à des
And these same beautiful televisions came to the Congo for a few bids extended to individuals in the Congo for an interview to please their population. And you were able to follow that.
il est mort, on est content.
Lumumba bothered us. He is dead. We are happy. It is treachery.
Beaucoup d'autres héros sont tombés pour que nous
Many other heroes have fallen so that we are here today.
technique de l'impérialisme, de faire peur aux autres.
And it is a technique of imperialism to frighten others by taking action to really create terror.
Parce que Thomas Sankara est un bel exemple.
I think Thomas Sankara is a good example.
Si vous avez peur,
If you are afraid, you will be cowardly and you will be a traitor.
n'ayez jamais peur.
Never be afraid.
La lutte.
The fight must continue.
Il y a beaucoup d'autres exemples à travers le
There are
monde.
many other examples around the world.
Il y a ce phénomène qu'ils ont aussi utilisé depuis.
And there is this phenomenon that they have also used for a long time and that they continue to use.
Certains individus, par exemple, se sont retrouvés dans d'autres pays.
You see, some individuals, for example, have found themselves in other countries
Au gouvernement du Mali. Vous avez entendu cette histoire
and created a so-called parallel government to the Malian government.
qui a existé dans le temps. Je vais vous prendre l'exemple.
You have heard this story. It is a technique that has existed for a long time.
Ce professeur de mathématiques qui a
I will give you the example of Ahmed Chalabi,
a été recruté
Iraq. This math teacher, who was even in the Iraqi government, was recaptured by the imperialists, and he formed this semblance of parallel government in Iraq, in the United States.
pour être donc le mouton de sacrifice. Parce que c'est à lui
And he
qu'on a
was used to be the sheep of sacrifice,
prononcé publiquement que Saddam Hussein développait des armes de destruction massive.
because it was to him that it was said that Saddam Hussein was developing weapons of mass destruction,
Et cet alibi
and
a
he
été
did it.
utilisé pour tuer des millions d'enfants en Irak et détruire l'Irak.
They used him. And this Talibi was used to kill millions of children in Iraq
Un soir,
and destroy Iraq.
après une interview, dans l'interview, il disait même que il sait que la
And do you know what was the fate of Chalabi?
quelques heures après, il a été retrouvé mort dans son lit, mort de...
One evening after an interview, he said that he knew that the CIA was on his back.
Si vous trahissez, vous aurez des fins macabres.
A few hours later, he was found dead in his bed, dead of a heart attack. If you betray, you will have macabre endings. That's how it is. Imperialism has no friends. Imperialism uses you.
Et quand il finit de vous utiliser, il fait
And when
de
it
vous
finishes
utiliser.
using you, it does what it wants with you.
Vous comprenez
Follow my gaze.
de quoi
You
je
understand what I'm talking about.
parle. Toujours été
It has always been like this.
Le troisième vice,
The third vice that I invite you to leave is incompetence.
c'est l'incompétence. Ah, je reviens encore au mot du slameur qui a marché sur
Ah, I'm coming back to the word of the Islamist who walked on my tongue.
Vous comprenez
Incompetence.
L'incompétence est un phénomène très dangereux.
You understand what I'm talking about. Incompetence is a very dangerous phenomenon that they use to destroy African society.
Reconnaissons-le. Les incompétents ont beaucoup
In our administrations, there is a lot of incompetence. Let's recognize it. Incompetents have a lot of space next to imperialism
Les incompétents peuvent
because incompetence can take over the development of a country. Incompetence can lead you to doubt yourself.
Les incompétents aiment tout pour eux seuls.
Incompetents love ease. Incompetents love everything for themselves. Incompetents don't like those who are competent.
Ceux qui cherchent. Les incompétents
They don't like those who innovate, those who seek. Incompetents are dangerous.
Lorsque vous êtes éclairé, l'incompétent ne vous aime pas.
When you are enlightened, incompetents don't like
L'incompétent
you.
ne vous aime pas.
When you want to innovate, incompetents don't like you.
L'incompétent sait reconnaître celui qui est compétent et il va le
Incompetents only recognize those who are
parce
competent,
qu'il a peur
and they will fight him until his last breath,
Cherchez
because
la
he is afraid of
connaissance.
those who are competent. Seek knowledge. Seek knowledge and work. Work hard to be competent. Ban incompetence.
Parce que à travers les distractions
Because through distractions that we want to make us adopt,
adoptées, on devient incompétent.
we become incompetent.
Les réseaux sociaux sont les
I'll give you an example. Social networks are the places where information is published today.
s'informent à travers Internet et beaucoup de choses. Un jeune qui
People are informed through the
les
internet.
réseaux sociaux un article sur sa ferme
A young man who publishes an article on his farm or an agricultural project or a scientific project may not have 1,000 views.
il n'aura pas peut-être 1000 vues.
But a young man who publishes on futility has millions of views.
Ce que moi j'appelle du n'importe quoi.
As the young slammer said, we want to waste your time on futility.
Justement, comme disait
Be
le
aware.
slammer,
Let's
on peut
focus
faire
on
perdre
work
du temps
and
dans
seek
la
knowledge.
futilité.
Let's seek
Prenez
competence.
conscience. Intéressons-nous au travail.
It's good to be
Cherchons la
distracted,
connaissance.
but we must work first before being distracted. Seek knowledge, otherwise you'll waste your time doing nothing.
D'abord, avant de se distraire. Cherchez la connaissance, sinon vous perdrez du temps à ne rien faire. Et la jeunesse,
Youth is the time when you must use your time wisely.
il faut exploiter son temps à bon escient. Les impérialistes le savent.
The imperialists know this.
Ils vont multiplier tout ce qui est événement de distraction. Ils vont multiplier tout ce qui est
That's why they multiply all events of distraction.
travail pour que vous soyez des incompétents.
They multiply all events that can distract you from work so that you become incompetent. When you fall asleep, you choose the incompetent to lead the important structures. You have no choice but to fold. Let's not be incompetent. Let's seek knowledge.
Les incompétents se cachent souvent derrière des mots.
Incompetents often hide behind words. They use the terms democracy and freedom without realizing what they mean.
Camarades, la démocratie est un état
Democracy is a state of mind as much as youth is a state of mind.
Ces soi-disant démocrates,
Whether you're a Democrat or not,
comment est-ce qu'on peut
how can you impose democracy by killing millions of people?
C'est de la dictature, ça, ce n'est pas de la démocratie. Ça ne
It's a
s'impose pas.
dictatorship, not democracy. You can't impose it.
Ceux-là qui se disent démocrates, mais regardez, nous avons
Those who
vu
call
des
themselves
scènes
Democrats
où on a
have seen
empêché des
scenes
gens
where
de
people
rentrer
were
dans les
prevented from joining
assemblées. On a vu des
assemblies.
scènes où des forces ont débarqué dans des assemblées pour obliger.
We've seen scenes where forces landed in assemblies to force deputies to take texts.
Plus terrible que ça.
We've seen more terrible scenes where people kill their demonstrators. But they call themselves Democrats, and we're called Perseus.
Si c'est ça la démocratie, je répète.
If that's democracy, I repeat, we don't want this democracy.
Et quand vous voyez souvent les incompétents,
And when you see
ils ne
incompetence,
cherchent pas à savoir quelle est la signification.
they don't seek to know what the real meaning of the word democracy is.
À la définition que lui a donnée l'impérialisme, et il se met.
They cling to the definition given to them by imperialism and start talking about democracy without really knowing the basics. That's incompetence.
Regardez le monde pour redéfinir la démocratie.
You have to know, look at the world to redefine democracy as we want it in Africa.
Les incompétents, c'est
Collective.
avec des règles, la liberté est collective. Parce que si vous ne respectez pas les règles,
Because if you don't respect the rules, you can't live in society.
si vous êtes libre de parler comme
If you're free to speak as you please, the other is free to answer as he
de vous
pleases.
répondre comme il veut,
That would be disorder.
ça sera du désordre. Si vous êtes libre,
If you're free to walk the streets and pass traffic lights as you please, the other is free to pass by and hit you. You understand that if individual freedom takes over, we are in a society of disorder.
Voilà pourquoi il y a des règles dans la société.
That's why there are rules in society.
Et là, on parle de liberté collective.
And everyone has to respect the rules.
Certains se donnent le droit de parler de leur liberté individuelle.
That's why we're talking about collective freedom. Some people have the right to speak about their individual freedom, but they don't care about others. I think that's also part of incompetence.
Ils s'arrogent les droits que peut-être les États les ont donnés.
Because they don't try to understand. They make up the rights given by the states to serve and do everything for themselves, neglecting the freedom of others.
On pense à la liberté d'autrui.
No, freedom is collective. Before we act, we think about the freedom of others, and we shouldn't transcend the freedom of others. So we need to have a reserve. And once we have a reserve, individual freedom doesn't exist. Freedom is collective, and we need to have this culture of collective freedom.
Cherchons donc la connaissance, lisons.
So let's seek knowledge, let's read, let's interrogate history. Don't read the history they wrote in their favor.
Cherchez la connaissance à travers plusieurs sources et vous comprendrez.
Seek knowledge through several sources, and you will understand in history who fought for Africa, how we must fight to continue this struggle of our ancestors.
Et je ne terminerai pas mes propos sans faire.
And I won't finish my words without making a statement about communication.
Parce que comme je le dis, c'est l'arme fatale de l'impérialisme. Et vous jeunes,
Because as I said, it's the fatal weapon of imperialism.
savoir distinguer le vrai du faux.
And you young people, you must do everything to distinguish the true from the false. We will continue to dismantle the lies of imperialist media that always try to create problems in Africa.
Par leur bouche, ils peuvent vous rendre un roi demain.
Because these media, through their mouths, can make you a king tomorrow. Through their mouths, they can make you leave your position as king and make you a poor slave tomorrow. Pay attention.
Je suivais une émission, malheureusement, il n'y a pas longtemps, burkinabé, où un jeune
I was following a program, unfortunately not long ago, in Burkina Faso, where a young journalist released a sentence that left me a little perplexed.
Il meurt de faim en Corée du Nord. A-t-il pris le soin d'aller en Corée du Nord enquêter pour voir vraiment s'il meurt de faim?
He was talking about North Korea, and the journalist said, but he is starving in North Korea. Has he taken care of going to North Korea to investigate to see if he is really starving? Since imperialist media have sold North Korea is more developed than many European countries. And because these media tell us that North Korea is a dictatorship, people are starving, they are poor, they have nothing, we take it here. But North Korea is a nuclear power. How did they do it? Let's pay attention to communication. We must not blindly follow these lying media that only try to divide Africa. It is logical. They fight for the interests of their people. And the interest of their people is that Africa is divided. So, young people of Burkina Faso, young people of Africa, we must unite. We must ban cowardice. We must ban incompetence. We must ban treachery and all the risks in our society. We have the opportunity to speak. We thank God for these opportunities that we have each time to speak, to raise awareness. And I invite you to spread the word, to get to work so that the Africa that we want, self-sufficient in terms of food, is a reality.
And that is the reason why you saw them, they went all the way and assassinate Muammar Gaddafi.
Recently, the United States back an investigation into the deaths of Gaddafi and his son Mutassim. If it goes ahead, they'll look into the chaotic first moments following his capture and how the beaten and bloodied Colonel Gaddafi was clearly taken alive. but in what appeared to be a short while later, was seen again apparently lifeless. From the moment he was dragged from the train during a gun battle, there have been many versions.
Muammar Gaddafi was humiliated in front of his nation. Muammar Gaddafi had to start running and hiding in his own land, all because we open our ears to listen to people that we're supposed not to be listening at the first position. What do we take from all this? If you look or if you listen very well to what Julius Malema had said in part 1 of this video, and if you have to listen to what Ibrahim Traore have said in this second part that we just played for you. By the way, guys, before we get to continue, do us a favor. If you are watching this video until this point, it's because you find something beneficial, you find something important that you'd like to hear more from us. So we are begging you in return, do us a favor by liking this video, give us your thumbs up. We will really do appreciate that. I'm giving you 3 seconds to do so. It's free of charge, by the way. Thank you to everyone who are busy liking this video. If you would like also to catch more from us, don't forget to subscribe at the end of this video so that we can be in the same page whenever we are here live again. Let's back to what I was saying, guys. So with these two individuals, with their different speech that they had give regarding African leaders or regarding what the Western they've been doing in Africa continent, well, you can understand that the Western strategy does not work anymore. The Western, they have lost it. They have realized that Africans, they are no longer the same Africa that they used to colonize back in days. They have understand that African youth, this African youth, they are not willing to pay attention to their nonsense. They have come to the point of understanding that this African youth, they are more ready to take their destiny into their hands and fight against all kind of oppressors that can come to challenge them. Because the death of African leaders such as Muammar Gaddafi, Robert Mugabe, Patrice Emery Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, there are so many of them. All these Africans who died for a good cause, whether it is through poisons, whether it is through assassinations, whether it is through accidents, any kind of tactics that these people had used in order for them to eliminate all these African leaders, as they did also with some people such as Krisani. Well, Africans, true Pan-African youth, whenever they sit on their corner, they had to come to realize that no, it is not normal. Everyone who's standing to talk in behalf of Africa, to defend Africans, this person is being considered as their enemy number one. And this person, he or she will have to be eliminated physically by attempting to take their life. So that is when Africans, they are coming now out on their numbers and start passing message out there by letting the Western medias with their mafias that we are all aware of your strategies. We are all aware of what you guys have been doing in Africa continent, and we don't have time again for you. This time we are more ready to fight you. We are more ready to challenge you. We are more ready to contest you so that we can be able to protect what our forefathers have fought for. Guys, now this does not sit okay with the US. Yes, the Western now, they're going crazy. If you see, whenever they meet themselves in their meetings, they're now debating, they're now fighting over Africa continent. They're fighting against who? They're fighting against China and Russia. Because Africans, they're now turning their back toward the West. The Africans, they have turned their back toward US, France, British, and all these nations. And they are more going forward to other countries where they believe that they can find that alternative in order for them to have a win-win project whereby if you are from China or Russia, you do feel that your people will benefit. And if you are dealing with any country in Africa, it could be Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, or Senegal, these countries, they have also to benefit for their own people. This is something that the Western, they were not aware of. The Western, they were used to come in Africa, correct African mineral resource, collect everything, imposing their law by force, and go to their countries and build their countries. The Western, they were used to come in Africa to loot Africa and leave out Africa empty-handed. Now, Africa now have find new partners which believe that, they believe that we need a benefits. We need to benefit from our partners as much they want to benefit from us. Look for yourself. If you are finding yourself right now in Africa borders, you will see that most of the projects, construction projects in your country, they are all coming from China and Russia. Now look around and show me any project which you know very well that this one is for Americans or this one is for Europeans, such as France or British or Germany. They don't have. Why? Because these people, they were only used to come in Africa, correct African mineral by force, and live without building for Africans or helping Africans in anything. They don't want Africa continent to develop because they know very well that as soon as Africa continent start developing, well, they'll lost all the control of Africans. Now, China and Russia, they are coming through. They will be, for example, like, no, you guys don't have the road. We are going to build the road, and you guys are going to pay us after a certain kind of period. Or maybe they'll say that, no, you guys don't have this manufacture and whatsoever, as we are going to provide it for you. And the first 10 years, we are the one who's going to collect the money here. After 10 years, we give it to you. It's going to be all yours. You guys don't have railways. So as we are willing to build a railway here, in exchange of you guys giving us a certain mining that we can produce whatsoever could be in that farm, in that mining, for this kind of period, after then we are good. The kind of negotiations these China's they're having with African leaders right now is the kind of negotiation that's supposed to be taking a long time. You heard Julius Malema saying that.
When we were negotiating for our democracy and thinking it's a peaceful transition from resistance to democracy, we actually found our leaders negotiating deals instead of negotiating for democracy.
Oh yes, African leaders, before, they were not good when it comes to negotiation. They did not know how to negotiate.
The failure of the African Union, because they are failing to do that, but even the countries in Africa should be making sure that they put Africa and Africa's agenda as a priority. And we had the African Union Agenda 2063 when Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was still there. And one of their key focus or one of their aspirations was that we need to have an Africa which is gun-free, no war, no killings. And that they were supposed to achieve by 2020, but they failed. That is still happening. We have a situation in Africa where we are still not yet putting Africa first and making sure that we make our resources to work for us. And by that, we will be able to even sustain ourselves, not even depend on any other country. But unfortunately, then we have a lot of leaders in Africa who are unfortunately puppets to the West and who are controlled and who are placed by the West to lead those countries.
Would you say our president is one of them?
Hey, Mr. McG.
African leaders, in other words, they were kind of like a people who were selling the African continent out to the West because they were doing all these things in the profit that will only benefit them with their families. That's the reason why you see most of these African leaders, their children, they don't even study in the African continent. Their children are found somewhere in Europe or America. They don't invest in Africa. If they want to buy somewhere in Paris, where they will buy a hotel there or a mansion. They want to invest everything over there. When they get sick, they don't want to be treated in the same hospital that their people usually go. They'll have to travel somewhere in Europe countries in order for them to go and get that better medical treatment. Yet there are people that are suffering, yet there are people that are getting sick and die. So you can tell that somehow, somewhere, whether we like it or not, we as Africans, we were being betrayed by our own leaders. Our leaders, they have failed us for so long. African leaders, instead of them being at the service of their people, instead of them serving their people, of course, they were at the service of the Western. It was the Western who have to tell them everything. It was the Western who have to tell them what to do and what not to do. But that moment is now over, because we're having now this African youth who are coming forward to challenge this Western with their strategy in Africa continent. We're having people such as Ibrahim Traore who had the courage to come and say, no, you guys leave my country, I don't need you. For the first time in Africa history, a man who comes and said that, no, look, the US military base, I want you out of my country. France military base, I want you guys out of my country. Chasing them even with their own ambassadors to leave these nations. That is something that used not to happen in this Africa continent, because these people, they were having the last word to say. They are the one who know how to put you in power. These same people, they are there looking at you. If you try to disobey them, they'll raise up some conflict in your country. They'll use someone who can come and fight you. And they are doing all this because they feel like they're the big brother in the house.
There's always big brother who decides. And when you fight and say, no, we are not going to do this, they use the system to stop you. It's either they set you up with the opposition, and they'll be supporting the opposition against you from the back, or they cause unnecessary chaos in your country so that you are not able to even govern your own people. They will do things to make you not to be functionable.
This is how things used to happen. And today things have turned around. Today now we're having African youth leaders who are sending loud message. Let me give an example of someone such as Julius Malema with his vision. This man is not in power yet, but he's already make his point being known out there to the Western by telling them that, no, look, once I become the president of South Africa, when it will be South Africa first, it will be Africa first, and not the Western. He even passes message by saying that we will work with countries such as Russia and China and not these oppressors, because he does not want to have anything to do with this Western, because he knows that these people, they are not trustworthy. If you trust them today, tomorrow they will disappoint you. They will do something to you that will hurt you even more. So Julius Malema have sent this message out there, and everyone who's seated somewhere there in the Western, they know very well that if this man have to go in power, we'll cry. And that is the reason why you see, guys, they are fighting Julius Malema with the EFF by all means. Look, for example, the previous elections. See the result that the EFF they've come up with. And the way EFF with Julius Malema they had performed in the previous mandate. Obviously, the result does not match at all. Do you know why? It's not because Julius Malema did not campaign or what. No. It's not because people of South Africa are not aware of EFF in order for them to vote for it. No. But it is because they put a lot of money. Yes, the Western did invest a lot of money in order for them to come up with some political parties which does not even have a name, so that it can just become like that disturbing wires in your legs in order for you not to walk properly. And that's what they did. So the EFF, they did not manage to not only be the president of South Africa, not even to be standing in the usual position in the parliament as the second opposition political party, but in the third positions. Of course, because this Western, they knew very well that if the EFF have to be in power, things was going to be hard for them. But besides EFF, besides Ibrahim Traore from Burkina Faso, we still have many African leaders. I'm talking about youth African leaders who don't want to have anything to do with the Western, because they can tell already that this Western, they are not people that we can trust. This Western, when they come, everything that they touch it to destroy it. So these African youth, they are looking for another way out there in order for them to work with these new partners and try to do things differently. Guys, it was very important that we have this conversation with you, because we're talking about two Pan-Africans. We're talking about on how to develop our beautiful continent. We're talking about on how to raise the economy of Africa continent. We're talking about on how we can create a free circulations of merchandise in Africa borders. We're talking about how Africans youth can be able also some days to create, to invent their own aeroplanes, their own phones. With all this mineral resource that we have in Africa continent, I think we deserve to be the master of creations or inventing around the world. How possible is it that the Arabic countries such as Saudi Arabia and Emirates, whatever they call themselves, those Asian countries, Syria, these countries, they don't have gold. This country, they don't have diamond. This country, they don't have most of the African minerals that we have. Yet Saudi Arabia, their economy is standing on petrol. Yeah, but in Africa, we have not only one Saudi Arabia, we have a lot of countries that produce petrol. Yet we are still poor. Imagine if Saudi Arabia, they're surviving with their petrol. Why Nigeria petrol can't also raise the economy of Nigeria? Why Gabon petrol can't do the same? Why Angola petrol can't do the same? Togo, should I go on? We have so many countries in Africa which produce petrol, but yet we're still crying. Why? Because the way our leaders have discussed on how to deal with these minerals, they did not discuss it properly. They did discuss to the benefit of the West. They did discuss to the way that people of their country won't benefit anything. So it is about time we come out with this kind of topic, we come out with this kind of conversation, to sit down and have this conversation so that we can see on how we can help each other from any part of Africa that we found ourselves living. So thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video until now. We really do appreciate your presence in this video, guys. I mean, we really do appreciate that. So do us a favor again before you leave. Make sure that you like this video in your numbers, especially if you find something very beneficial in this video. Please make sure that you give us your thumbs up and comment in the comment section. Tell us also your opinions. Tell us what you think about this debate that we are having here. We will have a look on those comments. But if you find something beneficial and you would like to hear from us in our next video, well, it is very simple. You just have to hit that subscribe button so that whenever we are here live, you'll be able to join this big family of Cool Buzz TV. Well, guys, I believe that will be all for today. For now, continue to be yourself, be good, be kind, have respect for everyone. In order for you to be respected, may God bless you all. I'll see you again very soon in our next video. Ciao, ciao.
Africa.